This wasn't that long ago. I went on a road trip to my family for a small reunion because the family was starting to break apart again. I was far away from all of them, so it was obviously going to be a long ride. After about a day of driving and pulling into gas stations, I needed sleep. Obviously, you shouldn't drive when you're tired. I pulled into a motel, which seemed normal at first. There weren't many people there, only a few workers and a couple. Despite all the stuff that's happened in my past, motels weren't that scary, and I knew everything that happened at them was only in horror movies and not in real life. But I still felt slightly on the edge. I went to the front desk, got to my room, and brought my bags. I'd only have to stay here for a night. The room was cozy and had nice lighting, the type that comforts you. I got to sleep fine, but at 2 a.m., I woke up. A weird feeling washed over me, and now I felt very uncomfortable. I figured getting up and getting a drink or something could make me calm down a little. There was a coffee/tea machine in my room, in a cup, so I went and made myself a warm tea. I wasn't a fan of coffee. I drank the tea, and then I attempted to go back to sleep. Probably 5 minutes after I closed my eyes, the phone that you used to call the front desk went off. I knew the best not to answer. I was too scared and wanted to know why I was being called. I picked up the phone and just heard a faint buzz, like the sound you'd hear when the signal of the TV is cutting out, and it made that glitching noise. I ran to the reception area, opened the door, and realized that nobody was there, not the receptionist or any of the workers. Again, just a faint buzz and a radio going off in the back rooms of the reception. Not like a walkie-talkie, it was a type of radios that play music. Keep in mind, this wasn't in the 90s or before, this was recently. It was classical music playing on the radio. I mean, in a way, this wasn't really weird. Maybe I got a prank call and the receptionist is actually just sleeping or something, and all the workers are too. Kinda comforted me a little more. I turned around and a man was there. That man was definitely tall and above 6 feet. "What do you need?" the man said. I told him about the call. He said it was a regular occurrence and that it only happens to people that deserve it. Deserve what? Well, I didn't ask. I didn't want to drag the conversation on any longer than how long it currently was. I walked back to my room. During the rest of the night, the phone kept going off and it didn't stop at all. I got up again and went outside when I noticed the man standing outside my window with his back turned towards it. "What are you doing?" I asked him. He told me he just wanted some fresh air. I went and got a drink from the vending machines. I walked back and realized the man was gone, but my door was wide open. I went back in and got into bed, closing and locking my door. Yes, did I just ignore my door being wide open? I was too tired and couldn't be bothered by anything else. I woke up again, after sleeping for probably about an hour, to the sound of my door knocking. Not just my front door, but my bathroom door as well. My door oddly wasn't locked, but I freaking ran at that door, hoping that if somebody was out there, I'd knock them over, and I'd have time to get to the front desk. I got to the front desk, and this time, the receptionist was there. I told him about everything that just happened, and he told me I sounded crazy. I told him about the call, and he told me that it never happens, and whoever told me that doesn't work there. I went back to my room with the receptionist, and the man wasn't there. In fact, there was no sign of him at all. But I know it was real. I know what happened. I've never seen that man since. I was in the USAF, stationed in Omaha in the late 80s. At the time, I hung out with my roommates and another friend. My name is Tracy, and my roommate's name was also Tracy. The girl we always hung out with was named Stacy. When we were together, everyone always thought we were lying, and being the silly teenagers we were, we always found it funny. One weekend, we decided to take a road trip to Kansas City, Missouri. We were speeding down the highway, laughing and singing at the top of our lungs. We were happy and having the time of our lives. Stacy was driving, and she had a bit of a lead foot. She must have been going too fast, because before long, a state trooper pulled up behind us and turned on his lights. Stacy immediately pulled over. By the time the officer made it to her window, She had her license and registration in her hand and the window down already. The officer looked at her and then looked at me and Tracy. He then said, "I want you to follow me. Don't try to run off or y'all be going to jail." He then turned around and walked back to his car and got into it. Needless to say, the three of us were puzzled and talking amongst ourselves, wondering why he didn't take Stacy's identification and write her a ticket. The officer pulled out slowly, and we dropped in behind him and followed him down the road. He drove a few miles and then exited the highway. He drove a little ways around and turned onto a dirt road that was surrounded by stalks of corn. We all stopped talking as we became more alarmed. However, being young and scared, and since he was a police officer, we continued to follow him. The officer drove for some time down this dirt road and then pulled into an area that had a big beat-up old barn. As he stopped and we stopped behind him, a group of men with shotguns exited the barn. It wasn't until that point did we realize we were in mortal danger and panic set in. The officer walked back to our car and told Stacy to get out and follow him to his car. As she got out, she looked at me and Tracy, and there was pure terror on her face. She followed him to his car, and he motioned her to get in on the passenger side, and she did. Tracy and I were crying, and as the armed men stood on the side of the car looking at us, we began quietly praying for God to protect the three of us. We prayed that Stacy wasn't being hurt, and somehow they would let us leave. After some minutes, Stacy bolted out of the officer's car and ran back and jumped in the driver's seat. She was crying hysterically, so of course Tracy and I began crying harder. The officer got out of his car and walked back to our car, this time to Tracy's window as she was in the front passenger seat. He asked, "Is it true y'all are in the Air Force?" To which Tracy replied, "Yes, sir." The officer calmly said, "Get out of here and go back to where y'all came from. I better not see y'all again." As soon as he finished, Stacy turned on the car, whipped it around, and sped back down the dirt road. She somehow navigated back to the highway. As she drove toward the base, the silence was only broken by an occasional sob from one of us. Stacy drove for a while, and as soon as we crossed back over in Nebraska, she pulled over on the side of the highway. Then she began to sob heavily. Tracy and I hugged her and asked if she was hurt in any way. She shook her head no, she wasn't hurt. After she calmed down enough, she told us what happened in the police car. After she got in the car, she offered the officer her identification and told him she was sorry for speeding. He took her information and then asked her, "What are you doing with those two N-words?" Stacy was white. She explained that we were on a road trip. He then told her that if she would do certain favors for him, he might let us go with the warning. At that, Stacy had a complete meltdown. I guess while he was waiting for her to calm down, he finally looked at her identification and saw that she had also given him her military ID. He asked her if we were all in the military, and between sobs, she said we were. He asked where we were stationed, and she told him, "A foot AFB. He then told her to go back to her car. As we sat there, Stacy told us what occurred. I think it hit all three of us at the same time, that the only thing that saved us was that we were in the military and stationed at a nearby base. We hugged each other and cried until we could not cry anymore. We didn't report what happened. Again, we were teenagers and didn't think anybody would believe us over a law enforcement officer. We never talked about it after that day. The incident has haunted me for years, all of the what ifs. But as I have gotten older, what haunts me more is the thought that the others may have not been as lucky as we were. So this happened April 4th of 2022. My friend and I were on our way back to Kentucky from Columbus, Ohio, after a Matt Maltese concert. We got about 20 miles out from the venue, and we both decided to stop and grab a snack, as well as use the bathroom. We did our business, got our snacks, and hopped back into the car and ate. I looked at the GPS and realized it changed our route. It went from the interstate down to some highway. I didn't really question it much. Well, it was already 12 a.m. and we were tired and just wanted to go home. We started making our way down the highway when I realized there's literally nothing. No other buildings, no light along the road. The only place I saw when we got off the next exit was just a gas station. Absolutely nothing else. There were hardly any trees. We could see our way down the highway, just open and flat fields. My GPS tells me, after 4 to 6 miles, to turn on a small road. I thought it was weird that I had to turn on a road that didn't even have 2 lanes or any lights. Just 3 sporadically placed houses that didn't even look like someone lived in them. At this point, I started feeling really off. I initially felt weird when we went to the highway instead of the interstate, but thought I was just being paranoid. Now at this point, I joked with my friend, this would be the perfect place to see SW. I didn't say the name, just the abbreviation. If you don't know what it is, well, just Google it. I've always been superstitious and don't like even saying or thinking of the full name. I even hate the abbreviation. He laughed and said, don't even say that. My GPS tells me that there's a railroad coming up, so I was ready for it. Problem was, I didn't see the railroad until we came up right on top of it. The only source of light was coming from my headlights. The train looked abandoned. The carts were covered in graffiti, and the wheels were corroded as hell. There were no railroad lights, no bells saying the train was coming though. Just pitch darkness and silence. My friend and I both felt a chill run down our spine, and we both just knew. We didn't know what exactly, just knew that we knew. He said my name in a scared tone, and I just knew I had to get us out. There was no way forward or around. I threw my car in reverse and quickly backed up until I was on the grass and booked it going 80 down the highway back to the gas station. When we finally collected ourselves, we sat and thought about it. Why would the GPS take us there if the train had clearly been sitting there for a while? Wouldn't that road have been closed off? Wouldn't there have been signs saying so? Why weren't the railroad lights on? Why did it even reroute there in the first place? Just so many questions that were unanswered. One thing I noticed was when we got back to the gas station and park, my GPS restarted and it went back to its original route. We knew for certain that that train didn't just break down that day and they left it. It had been sitting there for a while. The wheels don't just corrode like that if it was just broken for one day. The biggest issue I have with the situation is that it felt so fake, yet it was real. It didn't feel real from the moment we left the gas station to the moment we came back to the gas station. It felt like I was just there, floating and watching. It didn't feel real. Maybe it was the adrenaline. Maybe we freaked out over nothing. Maybe we were reading into it too much. But I know how I felt, and I know the feeling in my gut was horrible.